there's a lot of speculation regarding Meghan Markle's and Prince Harry's marriage. And of course, as he pointed out in that interview with the New York Times, well, if you remember, he basically said, did he not? Well, people are waiting for them to split up, break up, all that sort of stuff. And he gets disappointed in them because, of course, he knows it's not going to happen. Well, we don't wish that on anybody, do we, chums? But the bottom line is, and what you have to remember in a situation like this is, when you are a celebrity couple, the world looks at you to decide exactly, well, what they think. And consequently, Harry and Meghan now are simply that, no more than a celebrity couple. And on top of all of that, what you really have is them trying to dictate the narrative. And we saw that earlier this week in the very final episode, I'm sure you saw it, with Love, As Love, with Meghan, whatever it's called, right? But of course, she's spending Christmas with the people that matter to her most. More like her bank manager, one might suggest, of course, given the fact that this is the end of the lucrative Netflix deal. But the problem that you have if you are Meghan Markle is the scrutiny, as I say. Now, when you see this particular imagery of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle in that show, you think, oh, that's nice. Harry's complimenting her in a comedic way, all about, of course, her, cooking skills. He then basically says, well, it's not as good as your mum's, and all of that builds up, right? But what really happened behind the scenes was this. Morning everybody, thank you as ever for joining me for a brand new episode of By Royal Appointment. Welcome one and all on this very tranquil setting. It's starting to spit, light rain, whatever they call it, but we battle on, chums. You have to, right? I hope you keep it well. We'll have a wave back to the camera. Are you waving? Absolutely. It's all part and parcel if you are a chum and you've just joined us recently. That's what we do. We're a friendly bunch, as I say. It's always nice to be respectful, comment, all of that sort of stuff, but more importantly, enjoy. And as I often say, do take care of yourselves. As we head into this seasonal season, of course, we get everything, don't we? Flus, coughs, mixtures, whatever. And suddenly, that's why I'm always asking you, what do you do for this? What do we used to do for that? Why do we always have to pay over the odds for this particular stuff? The sort of thing. What's interesting, as I say, is when you look at situations like this, which of course the media scrutinises, and Meghan Markle absolutely loves, adores, and can't believe the fact that she's now got the lifestyle, and more importantly, the notoriety, the fame that she truly likes. This was Harry and Meghan, of course, on the very final episode, and there they were, as I say, interacting. It was a comedic moment, spontaneity at its very best, but it's fake. And here's the reason why. You see, a lot of people, and this is where Meghan just slips up because she's clearly not very bright. On her Instagram page, we had that big thing, didn't we, with the 80-person crew, right, behind the scenes, all saying it's marvellous. Everybody realising, of course, now they're going for their P45 because they've lost their job because, quite frankly, 80 people have made a dud. You can dress it up any way you want, but nobody wants to watch it. So, of course, if this was a success, you'd be looking at that big piece of people and saying, well, they're going to continue. We're going to go into series 2, 3, 4, 5, Christmas specials, autumn specials, all of that sort of stuff. But we didn't. And then you find out this. You see, this particular take, this spontaneity take of course, Meghan and Harry looking very loved up and together, all that sort of stuff. Well, it took 3 goes, and that was with a rehearsal. Because apparently certain people, and again, I have to say, and we saw this, didn't we, with the Stephen Colbert debacle, right? Well, Harry is actually quite good at getting the comedic timing quite right. But Meghan Markle, even though she's an actress, and apparently a very famous actress according to her husband, well, it didn't exactly work out to plan, and Meghan apparently just kept laughing so much at Harry's expressive responses. The reality really was she couldn't actually do it. So consequently, what happened? Well, they took it again and again and again. And finally, they got the take that you and I have now seen for the world. And that's the reason why this is not really working. Many people behind the scenes who've worked on this show have now opened up to me because production shut down a long time ago. Part and parcel of the problem is the script is virtually written by Markle herself. And consequently, this is all about people just coming in and saying, it's terrific, it's the most glamorous moment of my life. I've never tasted anything quite like this. Truly, people like Tan France know that it's absolute dud, but of course he's getting worldwide exposure. Anybody associated with this knows, good or bad, that people are going to be talking about them. Plus, it's dinner party conversation, isn't it? This is what happened when I was on there. What was she really like behind the scenes? Meghan can act it enough on Instagram, but clearly can't push it over on, of course, the TV screen. Now, Netflix were, well, shall we say, stunned, appalled, dismayed, whatever you want to call it, simply because they were hoping, as I say, for star guests. But star guests seemingly were out of town, too busy, on tour, seemingly keeping well away. And then, of course, people that she could and should have been able to pull into, like Oprah Winfrey. Well, then we find out, of course, from Oprah Winfrey that she too has cut off certain family member friends, keeps her distance. You can see now exactly how Meghan and Harry have formed a bond, such a close bond, with such a warm, caring, sharing person. You can understand why Michael Jackson suddenly turned on Oprah Winfrey, can you not? So where is she now with this particular deal for Netflix? Well, the problem that you've got is it was lucrative, very lucrative. They don't care about this now. They're moving on. They're about to buy into Warner Brothers Studio for $1 billion+ deal to take over the studio giant. This would have been ideal for the likes of Meghan Markle. Not only could she have got her career going back on track, perhaps finally into the movies, but also even more bucks just from simply making streaming content. But she wouldn't listen. And now the bottom line is, well, guess what? A little bit like the podcasting, she's about to take a pause. And then, of course, there's this. You know, as William and Catherine walked into the splendour of Westminster Abbey, I don't know about you, I thought it looked terrific. You know, I've been there before. It's one of those places that really gets you into the sparkling moment of Christmas. And Westminster Abbey, just to point out, chums, you can go in for free if you want to attend one of the many services. So it's a great way of seeing inside and how it's beautifully decorated, if you do see it like that, right? You know, because obviously people say, does it cost? Yes, there's the tour. Yes, there's all the guided tours and stuff, but you can still go to their services. So I would recommend that if you're on a budget. Nothing wrong with it, chums. We're all on a budget, right? So, and I don't know if you saw this. I thought this was really nice, in fact, because this is when you realise that people are becoming a little bit older. You know what I'm saying? Because if you saw that when, you know, senior members of the royal family turned up, including, of course, Charlotte and Louis and George, remember a couple of, well, years back, I thought this was a charming moment where, of course, they were all posting letters in Santa's post box. It's just nice, isn't it? The fakes that we've all done it. Have you still got your Santa stocking? You see, everybody does it. But this time around, because of course George is very aware, as is Princess Charlotte, right? I think Louis, between you and I, still sort of believes, but they now wrote, didn't they, on those chains, which was really delightful. Very sweet moment, and a lot of people missed that. That's the reason why that particular thing changed upon their arrival. The concert, as I say, is over here in the United Kingdom on ITVX and ITV on December the 24th, and it is really the kickstart to our wonderful Christian Christmas time over here in the United Kingdom. It's lovely, isn't it? Oh, by the way, I don't know if you saw this. Have you seen these new Christmas stamps from the Royal Mail, right? Yeah, these. Anything wrong with them, you think? Right, yeah. I didn't realise, of course, that suddenly they changed entire skin tone, but they have. And now guess what? The wokeratory over at the Royal Mail have no idea why suddenly this is not selling. I know, it's amazing, isn't it? You know, you play around with history and you suddenly realise that actually it's not working and you don't know why. It'd be like Henry VIII suddenly being on the sort of slim fast jabs, wouldn't it? It wouldn't work. But this is, of course, what we're dealing with right now. Now, of course, back to your royal story of the day, because, of course, this particular story caught many people's eye. And in detail, of course, Prince Harry decided that he wanted to talk about it in his best-selling book, Spare. Oh yes, Prince Harry delighted in telling us this particular story. That was the story, apparently the true story of what went on behind the scenes. Now, what I find fascinating is this, because obviously Harry was very much enamoured, couldn't believe he'd now finally got this beautiful girlfriend, even though, of course, she'd been married before, and, of course, wasn't exactly in the first full flush of youth, and there's nothing wrong with that. The second time around, as Jack Jones sang, can you, of course, be very delightful. But Meghan herself seemingly was a bit of a clothead, because she claimed that she didn't know anything about senior royals, didn't know too much about Prince Harry. Yet, of course, she detailed and read in great sort of relish the Andrew Morton book about his mother, Princess Diana. What did she do? Just double turn over pages or something? Who knows, but claims that's what happened. Now, Harry wasn't taking any chances, but I wanted to clarify this particular story literally for good, because people don't really understand, right? And this is the story where people want to make things as if this has happened, it's wonderful, everybody loves Meghan, nobody can be critical, everybody thought she was terrific. But as we found out recently, Behind the scenes of Deal or No Deal, she didn't resonate at all with the production team. She wasn't even on the first rung of the people. She was the one that they called in when people dropped sick. So Meghan's story about, oh, it was dreadful, I had to wear a padded bra, I was always told to make up, I had to do... Everything is victimhood at the highest order. Now, Harry, being a victimhood himself, decided very quickly that he didn't need to do this. So he wanted to smooth the way. And his version of events has always been this. You see, when he first started dating Meghan Markle, according to him, the bottom line truly was that, well, everybody couldn't believe it. Suddenly Harry had hooked this super girlfriend, a famous actress, Hollywood, well, not Canada, but Hollywood. Meghan, of course, had only been in Hollywood on trying to get jobs, but, let's not put a minor detail in the problem. But what truly emerged was the fact, and this is from, as I say, a double extra source on this particular story, because it just clarifies exactly how one or the other or both are openly lying for their own benefits. The idea apparently was that both William and Catherine went, oh, no, that hot girl from Suits? Well, the hot girl they'd never heard of. And I can confirm 100% that Catherine, the Princess of Wales, and His Royal Highness Prince William, they didn't watch Suits. It wasn't their thing. They like CSI, stuff like that, Star Trek, all of that. Nobody over here really knew Suits. Now, Harry admitted he didn't first see her on Suits because it didn't work over here. It wasn't a big hit. And as I said, when I met Meghan Markle in that production suite, I think it was at the Somerset House or something, this was for, I think, Watch Channel or something like that, one of those channels, the Yesterday channel. The idea really was that they were begging for people to go in and cover this show because it rated so badly over here. So this story, again, just to doubly clarify, is a complete and utter fake. The Prince and Princess of Wales did not watch Suits on a regular basis. They weren't enamoured to meet this actress. What truly happened was they were told by their staff, this is who she is, this is the background. Hence the reason, of course, Catherine, this is, of course, in Meghan's version of events, was reticent, not too forward at coming forward, because consequently, she didn't really know this woman. Harry had just sort of dropped this woman upon them. And there wasn't that meeting set up or anything like that. Suddenly Harry said, can you come over? They came over and bang, there's this woman, getting them, as it were, surprising them. So you can understand that why they stood back. Just to be polite and kind, and of course didn't want to offend Harry, knowing how delicate he was at this sort of thing, they decided to go along with this and say, oh yeah, of course we watch Suits all the time. It's just the polite thing to do. I've done it myself. I've interviewed big interviews and big stars, or indeed, directors, and thinking, never heard of you. But of course, you sit down and you say, you've had a wonderful career, do explain your latest film. And this is exactly the sort of conjuncture that really happened between the Prince and Princess of Wales and the very first meeting. They had no idea about Meghan Markle in Suits. And just to clarify, Harry wanted this to happen again with Her Majesty the Queen. So much so, he wanted her to say, oh, I watched you on that, you're terrific. Now, imagine the Queen sitting down thinking, yeah, just the sort of thing I want to watch. So he gave her a DVD. Not sure if the Queen ever watched it. She's far too busy, or was far too busy, and far too polite to be rude. But the bottom line was, she was no fan of Suits. As the Netflix deal dies a death for Meghan Markle, they now both have to look at how exactly they are going to get some money to come in to the coffers, right? Because if you think about it, Lemonada with their podcasting, well, that's died a death. They lost Spotify, and really the deals that she thought she was going to get, particularly when she popped over to Paris, have not come forward. Even though Meghan tried her very best with the Valencia to feature that on the promo, remember that, chumps, it didn't really work. And so the bottom line now for Meghan is, what does she do to rake in some money? Now, as I told you, the idea really for her is to pause these things. And this is what happens when things are a disaster. You see, at the start of the year, as we know, Meghan really boasted about the fact that suddenly Netflix were not just going to be her streaming partner, but her business partner. And the problem is, when you've got a business partner, they expect you to do sort of what they want. It's a dual deal. You may have your ideas, but they have their ideas and expertise as to why they, want to sell things and the things that they think that you could sell. As I've often stated, when you look at somebody like Kylie Minogue or even Madonna, if you remember, Madonna started her own skincare range and her own line of gyms. They were not particularly successful, even with the super clout of Madonna behind them, because A, you're not turning up, B, your fan base moves on. And suddenly, if you like Madonna in the 80s, you're now going to be possibly late 50s, early 60s. Are you going to the gym on a regular basis? How does that resonate with a younger audience today? And this was the problem for Meghan Markle. Now, as we know, she claims that her business idea, her plan, literally came from the idea of, well, basically just making jam at a stove in her house. And she mentioned this to an executive at Netflix, and they said, oh, this sounds a great idea for a TV show. That wasn't the case at all. The true story was that Netflix liked the idea of Meghan Markle actually going down into a far different and more profitable route, one that again had been nicely trodden by the international pop star Kylie Minogue. You see, Kylie Minogue, as I've often mentioned here on the show before, has built an incredible business on the back of knowing exactly what the public wants. Kylie knows herself that, her vocal abilities are of the pop superstar level. And I'm not knocking her, I think she's a terrific girl, but she knows exactly the placement. When she decided to become an indie princess in the early 90s, they didn't want that. They wanted Kylie singing, I Should Be So Lucky and Better the Devil You Know. When she branched out into business, she was super clever by deciding what avenues to go down. So you could buy things like the duvet spread from Kylie Minogue, pillowcases, towels, mirrors, makeup, and now, very, very cleverly, she absolutely 100% makes just as much money from her own Kylie wines, the Prosecco range. And as I mentioned to you before, the good thing about Kylie Minogue is she's not snobbish. These wines are sold in what we call dollar discount stores, over here, pound stores in the United Kingdom. Not that they're a pound, but they're alongside those bargains. So you come away thinking, oh, okay, Kylie, you feel comfortable and you want to buy into a brand. Very successful. If you remember, she very clearly and won, we might say, a case against, of course, Kylie Jenner, because Kylie Minogue felt that this was an intrusion of her own brand. Now, where does Meghan Markle fit into this? Well, when she sat down with Netflix, you see, what they wanted from her was the likes of something similar to Goop, but more accessible. Meghan Markle felt that as a former member of the British monarchy, and remember, even senior executives on a daily basis had to address Meghan as, of course, the Duchess of Sussex, Ma'am, and be introduced each and every time. Many felt that they even had to curtsy because this is what they were told in advance. I kid you not, I mean, it's ridiculous. But you have to remember, at this point, they've paid top dollar for Meghan Markle. They're hoping they're going to get something out of this, right? Consequently, they really didn't. But here's the deal. You see, behind the scenes, and this is the navigation point, they suggested to Meghan that, yeah, jams are very nice. And remember right at the beginning of this, and this is where Netflix were fed up and decided enough was enough. She started with whatever it was, American Riviera Orchard. Very badly timed. At this point, they were not in her company, right? They were just there to make the program to stack up the brand. But they felt if they got in with her, they might be able to get more product, more streaming stuff out. But, there's your deal. Now, consequently, what happened was, as she couldn't get that nailed down and couldn't get a CEO who wanted to work either alongside her or indeed underneath her, Netflix stepped in. But their proviso was that Meghan also went down things like bed linen, towels, face flannels. She felt this was cheapening the brand, the Duchess of Sussex brand. But again, convoluted and messy, because as we know, Meghan Markle very quickly announced to the world, did she not, that, she had to be HRH, privately sending out pots of jams and notes to her friends, knowing that they were going to photograph this and put this on Instagram and social media pages. She was spotted, of course, on the plane with her own DS, branding on her own stuff. This is the ridiculousness of what was truly going on behind the scenes. You get the picture. Moving forward, of course, Netflix then said, well, this is what we want. And the idea thing was that when she sat down with Gwyneth Paltrow, Meghan thought that this was going to spin this round on its axis. Suddenly she was with a successful former actress, Oscar winner, entrepreneur, who was now sort of back in the brand. And this placated Netflix for a while because they believed that even though the first series had got off to a rocky start, perhaps people might view it differently and then warm into the second series. But they pushed and pushed and pushed hard for these sort of contents, this sort of, whatever they wanted to sell branding wise. Meghan and her team, and remember, the team has been refreshed more time than your average teapot. Well, they couldn't keep up with it because each time they would wake up and Meghan had another bright idea, but it wasn't one that was going to sell. The final sort of straw, if you like, for Netflix was the fact that basically when the jams didn't sell, when the wine didn't sell out and all the other paraphernalia that she was trying to get going, including the chocolate bars, they felt that this was not going to create the profit margin that they truly wanted between Netflix and the Duchess of Sussex. So consequently, that new deal that they were looking at, the refreshed deal of, first look and all of that, well, that was just a very nice way of saying, look, it's really not working out for us, dear, but if you came up with something that we quite like, we might want to come along with it. The problem is, as yet, Meghan Markle wouldn't do what they wanted, and so consequently, on the back of that, Meghan and her team now find themselves bereft of Netflix and totally unemployed. And that's truly what happened behind the scenes there. As the week came to a close for Meghan and Harry, well, what we were sort of met with was a lot of publicity, wasn't there? Prince Harry popping up on CBS, the Stephen Colbert show, making an absolute Horlicks of himself, but he thought this was kind of good. The true story behind that, as ever, is always good to share. You see, the bottom line was when he popped over to Toronto to appear in the ballroom of the Hilton Hotel, things were not going to plan, right? Just 100%. Things are not going to plan. Harry basically now needs to make money being a public speaker. And the public speaker thing can be a lot of money, ex-prime ministers, leading lights in business, that sort of stuff. You have a finite time to make the money because if you've done things, people might want to hear how you did it, how you became a billionaire, how you became a success. What has Harry actually achieved? Well, he's written a book. Well, he didn't because a ghostwriter wrote it and Harry stuck his name on it. And then he did one or two interviews, but he didn't exactly sell it, right? Hence the reason Penguin Random House pulled away from the 4-book deal, as I mentioned to you before. Everything is a catalyst of disaster. Meghan Markle's podcast, a disaster. Spotify, a disaster. Everything they turn to doesn't really resonate with the audience. And the other issue really with Prince Harry is the fact that not only is he not really a particularly engaging public speaker, and that's not because he's not good at it, but really he doesn't know what he's talking about. So in order to be able to pick in that big bucks, the big spinning money things, you have to have, as I say, like a former prime minister, something of that level. You have to be able to pull that in, right? Now, the problem that you've got again is that Meghan Markle thinks that she's an incredible public speaker and that people would want to see and hear her. But the problem that you also have with that is nobody actually wants to book Meghan. Now, if she'd have become a success with her business as ever, or whatever she wants to call it, well, people might have thought, okay, this is something there. Hence the reason every podcast she shut down any opportunity for anybody to sit and talk to her about the sales, about how well things are doing, all of that sort of stuff, right? And so consequently, it makes it for a very boring interview. Bloomberg wouldn't want her back. I mean, they didn't get the clicks and the figures that they hoped. And the podcasters have now moved on, sitting down with the likes of the former First Lady, Michelle Obama. Somebody else, some people might say, has made something of a career out of being a bit of a Me Too problem. You know what I'm saying? And I mean that in the kindest of ways, but seemingly even living in the White House with all those personal extras around you, well, it didn't make Michelle very happy. You wonder exactly why Meghan Markle likes these people. And also, Meghan has aspirations to move into the land of politics. Whatever she says, this will now be, in many respects, the only option open to her. Now, moving forward, what you've got is a bigger problem, because if Harry can't bring the books in through public speaking, as he'd hoped he was going to do, with, of course, the thing that he did in Toronto, but then shut down because then he wasn't really wanting anybody, of course, to take pictures or indeed record it, they didn't really get the bang for the buck. They didn't get exactly what they were paying for. Now again, here's where this becomes really interesting. Why did Prince Harry suddenly pop up on CBS Stephen Colbert? Well, as I told you before, the last time that he was there, it was pretty successful for him. And let's not forget, Stephen Colbert is a flop. right? CBS have decided to bin him, and that's all really down to the fact that that particular company lost a huge lawsuit against the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. Now, of course, Harry decided to mock and make fun of that on that TV show. Didn't go down well with the bosses. Some people, the wokeratory, might say, oh, that was funny, but not really when you're losing your job. CBS are about to shed even more people in the new year. And of course, it's very difficult for the morning show anchor and sometimes supporter of Harry and Meghan, Gayle King, the former US astronaut, of course, because she too will have to look at, well, making cuts. They've moved studios, they're cutting down, everything's becoming cost effective. The one thing, though, that, well, they will splash out on with none other than Prince Harry is this. But this is the one thing that Harry has that indeed Netflix might find very lucrative. You see, they don't want any more Polo. They certainly don't want any more As Ever, the business show. The thing they would like, of course, is pure gossip. The thing that they got the first time around with Harry and Meghan. They felt they'd got their boats from that. Everybody was aware they couldn't have bought that sort of publicity. It very much worked in their favour. Behind the scenes, though, and this is the reason why Harry popped up on CBS, and this is a pivotal part of that, is CBS would very much like to have the 30th anniversary documentary from Prince Harry, all about his late mother, the late and beautiful Princess Diana, Princess of Wales. The reason why they want this is because they need sales, they need advertising, they need ratings. And what they did really was give Prince Harry carte blanche to do whatever he wanted to do on the Stephen Colbert show. And more importantly, and this is the bit where they've missed this point, CBS, Stephen Colbert and his team will plan to either take the show away to another network, or indeed, not just another network, but do it independently. They are forming something of a very close bond. So whether Harry signs on the dotted line for his mother's story of an anniversary of the 30th anniversary of Diana's passing remains to be seen. But as we know, his elder brother, Prince William, he would have a very big say in this, as would, of course, Earl Spencer, Charles Spencer, Diana's brother. And what's interesting here, let's not forget, is that Earl Spencer is not exactly feeling very close, warm and fuzzy with regards to Prince Harry, because if you remember, very earlier this year, Harry almost dragged him into another royal scandal. This is because Harry wanted and looked into the idea of changing their name from Mountbatten Windsor, which is the name that they have, to, of course, Spencer. Now, do not forget that Meghan Markle, even now more than ever, detests the idea of being called Mountbatten Windsor for the association with none other than the former royal known as the Duke of York, Prince Andrew. So consequently, while Harry was beavering away with that, things were taking a different turn behind the scenes at home. But the deal really is on offer from CBS. If Harry wanted to make this tell-all documentary about his late mother and his memories of a 12-year-old boy, which are going to be limited, as I've said to you before, well then they'd definitely be up for that particular chat. Either way, what one might suggest, of course, is these are very difficult times for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. They have one or two offshoots in there. But the bigger problem that they truly have, and when you think about it, this is going to be a big problem, is exactly where this now story lands with the unfortunate health issues at the time of recording this with her father, Thomas Markle. Nobody likes to see people who are supposed to be warm, fuzzy, kind and selling that entrepreneurial thing on the world stage to treat a family member like that. Whether it looks good, whether the background story or not, it doesn't look good. And here's the other problem that Meghan's now facing, and it's a huge problem. You will know that she's had the chocolate bars out. You will know that she's had all the things like the jams and the champagnes and everything. Where are these celebrity friends? Why have all of those people that have appeared in Meghan's As Ever with Love Meghan show, where are they pumping this out on their social media? Everybody remains distinctly quiet. And this is because, according to a source, nobody wants any more of the backlash. And more importantly, in the world of Hollywood, people are looking at this and suggesting, well, what will happen should, of course, the unfortunate thing of Thomas Markle take a turn? It just doesn't look good. Meghan's story is that her team reached out to her father. Her team, not Meghan herself. You see how this works. Now, I can tell you behind the scenes, Meghan Markle is already being approached by all the glossies offering whatever she would want to do to talk about how she's feeling regret or where she feels at this moment in time regarding her father. But it won't be enough to save her, because everybody knows that she cut him dead for so many years. Do not forget that her husband has never actually sat down on a face-to-face meeting with her father. I mean, incredible when you think. And on top of all of that, also do not forget that he's never met his grandchildren. Now, whatever he's done, it doesn't seem to me on the surface, nobody knows what goes on behind the scenes, but on the surface, it doesn't seem that bad. But of course, behind the scenes, the way this is going to be played out is once some expert PR to spin it into the story that Meghan Markle and Prince Harry now truly 100% require. Because what they do next is imperative of how they will be viewed, looked upon, and how on earth they can move their dwindling careers forward. You see how this works. So behind the scenes, these are very pivotal times. And as I said, Harry's now got to look at ways of making some money, i.e. public speaking, documentaries, appearing on things, or spoofs, jokes, cameos in big screen movies. We've seen many other people do it, and let's not forget, these are now just micro celebrities. This is exactly where Meghan and Harry are right now. As ever, thank you for joining me on the latest episode of By Royal Appointment. And if you can, chums, as ever, if you could like, comment and share respectfully. Oh, and if you know how to do it, of course, you can hype. Yes, well, I know it's just the way I'm stood, but yes, if you know how to do it, do let me know, or if you can. And just take a little view of this wonderful scenery. It's lovely, isn't it, that we can still have this wonderful view in the very depths of an English winter. And yes, the swans are very friendly indeed, only if you've got some food. Until next time, as ever, do take care of yourselves.